Hello everyone. In this video, I am going to read through the release of information. Sometimes it is easier and makes more sense when somebody is reading this document to you. So we'll go through this document. We recommend that you read this document to your clients instead of just handing it to them and having them read through it themselves. If your organization's policy is to hand them a packet of documents to review, that's fine. Just make sure before they sign this that they understand everything that is contained in this document. So I'm going to start going down through this release of information, which also includes notice of uses and disclosures. This used to be two separate documents, but last year the HMIS Advisory Committee made the decision to combine these two documents into one and make that our HMIS release of information. So this notice describes how information about you may be used and disclosed and how you can get access to this information. Please review it carefully. If you have any questions or desire any further information regarding this form, please contact the HMIS lead agency. To best serve your needs, to develop meaningful treatment plans, to determine your continuing eligibility for services, and to monitor your progress in complying with the terms of your shelter, housing, or other services, agency and the continuum of care need to exchange, share, and or release data, information, or records they may collect about you. The information contained in your case records with any agency is considered confidential and privileged and cannot be exchanged, shared, or released without your express and informed written consent, except where otherwise authorized by law. Please understand that access to shelter, housing, and services is available without your consent for the release of information. However, your consent, although optional, is a critical component of our community's ability to provide the most effective services and housing possible. Every household adult 18 and older must have their own signed release information. When a client signs this, they are stating that they understand the following. This agency may not condition the provision of services provided to me based on my signing this consent authorization. This agency may not refuse to serve me simply because I do not want my information shared with other agencies. However, I understand that signing this consent does not guarantee services. If I give permission, the HMIS allows information about me, including my photograph, to be shared with other HMIS partner agencies. This may include, but is not limited to, my basic identifying information, such as name, social security number, date of birth, gender, race, ethnicity, marital and family status, household relationships, contact information, veteran status, disability status, history of homelessness and housing, income information and non-cash benefits, legal history information, self-reported medical history, including mental health and substance abuse issues, type of health insurance, services needed, and outcomes and emergency contact information. The purpose of sharing information this way is to help the agencies that I seek service from obtain information about me more quickly, assist with my case management, and to help connect me with the services I need. Under the next bullet point, unless I place restrictions in writing on the agencies that may see information about me, all HMIS partner agencies will be able to see the information that this agency puts into the HMIS. Agencies that join the HMIS after I sign this consent or authorization also will have access to my personal information that I authorize for data sharing. Upon my request, this agency must show me a list of the agencies participating in the HMIS. So that information, just a side note here, is contained on the HMIS webpage, which is housed on the Treasure Coast Homeless Services Council website. And that information will be at the end of this presentation. But just so you know, we do keep an up-to-date list of participating agencies. Okay, on to the next bullet point. States that I understand that I have the right to inspect, copy, and request all records maintained by this agency relating to the provision of services provided by this agency to me and to receive a copy of this form. I understand that my records are protected by federal, state, and local regulations governing confidentiality of client records and cannot be disclosed without my written consent unless otherwise authorized by law. I understand that this consent authorization can be revoked by me at any time in writing by delivering a dated and signed written request to this agency. So a note here, this is an important bullet point to be aware of, that a client may revoke their consent at any time. Um, of course, we'd like to see a very good reason for that to happen. And again, this goes back to your ability as a caseworker, being able to talk through the importance of the data sharing with this client in regards to being able to provide them the most effective and efficient services. So on to the next bullet point. This form specifically authorizes the use of information about me in research conducted using information maintained in the HMIS. I will not be personally identified by name, social security number, or any other unique characteristic in published research reports. The type of research that will be conducted using this information includes reports on the number of characteristics of people using different types of services, the effectiveness of services, and changes in patterns over time. Next bullet point. I understand that this release will remain in effect for 7 years from the date it is signed, and that consent can be revoked by me at any time by delivering a dated and signed written request to this agency. So again, side note here is the release of information is good for 7 years from the date that it is signed. So if you are keeping paper copies of this release of information, you do need to make sure that you have those paper copies someplace that can be accessed for that 7-year time frame. All right, moving on to the next page. What is the HMIS? When you request services from this agency, we enter information about you and the members of your family receiving services with you into the computer system called Homeless Management Information System, or HMIS. The HMIS is used by many social service agencies in the Treasure Coast Homeless Services Council continuum of care covering Indian River, St. Lucie, and Martin counties. Why is this information about you collected? To help us better understand the people we serve and their needs, to better assess the community services currently available and assist with identifying unmet needs for future service planning, to reduce duplication of information and services, to monitor whether your needs and the needs of others in the community are being met, to decrease the time you spend trying to get services that you need, to improve the quality of care and service for unhoused individuals and families. How can information about you be used or disclosed without your specific written consent? Unless restricted by other local, state, or federal laws, the information can be used by or disclosed to the following without your specific written consent. As required by law, to authorize people who work in the agency for purposes related to providing services to you and your family, or billing or funding purposes, to auditors or others who review the work of this agency or need to review the information to provide services to this agency, to the Treasure Coast Homeless Services Council HMIS team who run the software system to maintain data. They may see your data in the process of fixing problems or system testing. To government or social services agencies authorized to receive reports of abuse, neglect, or domestic violence to extent that such reports are required by law. To public health facilities where information is used to prevent or lessen a serious and imminent threat to public health and safety. This form specifically authorizes the use of your information in research conducted using information maintained in the HMIS. You will not be personally identified by name, social security number, or any other unique characteristic in published research reports. The type of research that will be conducted using this information includes reports on the numbers and characteristics of people using different types of services, the effectiveness of services, and changes in patterns over time. Other uses and disclosures of your information will be made only with your written consent. You may revoke your consent at any time in writing. The revocation will not be effective to the extent that an entity disclosing or using the information has already acted in reliance upon it. For example, we cannot take back information you, ha you have already given permission to be shared. How can your information be used if you allow sharing of your data on the release of information form? If you sign the release of information form, your information will be shared with other agencies that use the HMIS with restrictions which you specifically indicate on the consent form. Sharing your information will help other agencies obtain information about you more quickly, helping with case management and improving their services to you. If you do not want some of your information shared, you should say so on the release of information form. On to the next page. What rights do you have regarding your information? You have a right to receive a list of people who have viewed your protected personal data as maintained in the HMIS for the 7 years prior to the date you request this information. The exception is that you do not have the right to a list of disclosures for national security or intelligence purposes, or to correctional institutions or law enforcement officials, or if required by law or restricted for certain health oversight purposes. You can exercise your right as listed above by making a written request to this agency. If you believe that your privacy rights have been violated, you may submit a written complaint to the agency or submit a written complaint to the HMIS grievance. The Treasury Coast Homeless Services Council HMIS team will attempt to resolve your complaint. Should further review be required, your complaint will be escalated to the HMIS Advisory Committee. This agency and the Treasure Coast Homeless Services Council are prohibited from retaliating against you for filing a complaint. This agency and Treasure Coast Homeless Services Council are required by law to maintain the privacy of your protected personal information and to provide you with this notice. The agency and Treasure Coast Homeless Services Council are further required to abide by the terms of the notice that is currently in effect, but the notice may be updated periodically. The revised notice will always be posted at this agency, and a copy may be obtained by contacting this agency. Then here the client will print their name and sign, as well as the signature of a witness. I do want to cover the privacy notice while we are here. So this privacy notice should be posted. It is required to be posted at any place where you are collecting client information. So this should be viewable in any location where you are collecting client information. For example, if you are meeting with a client in your office and you are capturing their information, or they are completing the forms for HMIS data collection, or whether you are speaking with them directly and inputting information into the HMIS as you're speaking to them, this notice must be visible. So either frame it and put it on the wall, or have it laminated or in a sheet protector or in a frame on your desk. But this does need to be visible. And this is just the HMIS privacy notice, and I'll read this. As well, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and other federal and state partners require that each jurisdiction that receives homeless funding have a homeless management information system in place. Therefore, this agency is required to participate in the Treasure Coast Homeless Services Council Homeless Management Information System, a computerized system that collects and stores basic information about the persons who receive services from this agency. The goal of the HMIS is to assist us in determining your needs and to provide a record for evaluating the services we are providing to you. We only collect information that is needed to provide you with services or that we consider relevant to helping us understand the scope and dimensions of homelessness to design effective service delivery. Information may be disclosed as required by funders or by law, or for specific administrative or research purposes outlined in our privacy policy. By requesting and accepting services from this project, you are giving consent for us to enter and share your personal information into the HMIS. The collection and use of all personal information is guided by strict standards of confidentiality as outlined in our privacy policy. A copy of your agency's privacy policy and a copy of this HMI's privacy policy is available upon request for your review. These policies may be amended at any time. Amendments may affect information obtained by the agency before the date of the change. An amendment to the privacy notice regarding use or disclosure will be effective with respect to information processed before the amendment, unless otherwise stated. So these are two very important documents. I would make sure at your agency that you do see this HMIS privacy notice posted somewhere. If you do not, this can be pulled down off of the HMIS webpage as well. And again, that link will be provided at the end of this training session. Thank you for watching.